To the March 26th Bennington Select Board meeting. We're happy to be here tonight on this lovely evening. My niece flew in from Tucson tonight, and she's spending spring break with us, and when she arrived, she said, "Oh, it's so wintry here." I didn't have the heart to tell her that this is the least wintry day we've had in weeks. All of our sap buckets are overflowing at home, and when Tom Jacobs gets back, I'm going to charge him for the maple syrup that it's costing me to be here tonight while he recreates in Florida. So. Before we start the evening meeting, I'd like to have everybody introduce themselves. So why don't we start to my right? Jean, would you be willing to
Sure.
go first?
Good
please?
evening, I'm Jean Connor.
Good evening, Carson Thurber.
Good evening, my name is Jim Carroll.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Jenkins.
Good evening, Chad Gordon.
And we have...
Stuart Hurd, Town Manager.
Nancy Lively, Secretary.
All right, great. And I am Donald Campbell, as you know, the Vice Chairman. So before we start the meeting, I'd like to ask if Nancy would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Nancy. First order of business tonight is the minutes of March 12th and the warrants, which everybody has probably had a chance to review. Are there any questions or comments on either of these? No? Nancy, there was one thing I noticed. Line 129, Tim Van Orden is his name, O-R-D-E-N. It's the only thing on line 129. I'm sorry I didn't point that out to you earlier. So with that one minor correction, I would accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay, so moved and seconded. All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So citizens' comment. We have one citizen who has signed up to speak tonight. Mr. Trevor Adolphus, would you like to join us? Please come on up to the mic. And I've already introduced you, but please introduce yourself and tell us what's on your mind tonight.
Good evening. My name is David Trevor Adolphus. For about the past 2 months, I have been running the Bennington office of NeighborWorks. I'm working to put the office on a more stable footing than it has been over the last couple of years. We are commencing round 2 of our Bennington rental rehab pilot program with a second round of funding. Our agreement with the town of Bennington requires a select board member to participate on a steering committee. I've reached out to some of you, and I haven't found anyone yet. I'd like to ask someone to volunteer or to be nominated, or else for the select board to choose to step aside so that we can proceed with identifying some properties to work on this year.
And Dave did ask me to join. I've chosen to decline because I might be trying to become eligible for one of those
That's a good
rehab
reason
programs.
to decline.
Yeah.
Jean.
I was also asked, I would love to do it the time of day. I work in Williamstown, so the time of day of your meetings is really problematic. If you choose to move them either to the end of the day or first thing in the morning, it would be better. But if you can find someone else, that's perfectly fine.
Jean would obviously be a great candidate since she's on the Shires board, so...
Or maybe I'm not a great candidate because I'm on the Shires board.
I think that would be ideal. If you'd like to send me your contact information, maybe we can work out a time that works for everyone.
Okay, yeah, in the middle of the day, it's just, it's an hour.
That's great.
Or another, 40 minutes of time to get back and forth.
I understand.
So, okay. I'll
Thank you,
respond.
Jean.
You're
That's
welcome.
great. Thanks for working that out. Anything else we need to know from NeighborWorks? Or
I don't think so. If anyone has any questions about the program or would like to discuss where we're going and where we've been, I welcome anyone to stop in at our office at 136 North Street.
Can
great.
you refresh our memory as to the parameters of what it is you're asking a select board to take in?
Our agreement with the town requires that I form a steering committee to identify rental properties within the town of Bennington to receive grants under this pilot program. We're looking for probably 2 short meetings, one where we discuss areas where we think we'd make the most impact, and a second when we have candidates to discuss the most appealing properties for the program.
So, and it was our desire to have a little select board presence there, just to, since they're new, kind of keep our finger on the pulse of what they were doing. We may choose eventually to dispense with that, but it's great for now that we have the ability to have, hopefully, Gene checking in with you.
We have some other members of town government and other interested local agencies participating as well, trying to draw as wide a pool as possible. And we may have some citizen involvement, assuming privacy concerns don't prevent that.
So maybe in a couple months when you get your sea legs and whatnot, you could come back and give us a little update on services available and what can happen in town.
I'd be pleased to.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other citizens' comments, we're going to move directly into consideration of the review proposed charter amendments and set public hearings for a special meeting date. And so I don't know if everybody has had a chance to kind of think about this, but Tom and I and Stuart and Dan looked at the calendars and looked at possible dates. I guess you talked to Cassie Barbeau, the town clerk, about when she can and can't hold elections. My feeling to the board is that we have made a commitment to we've spent the winter going through the charter committee recommendations. We didn't surface anything that was earth-shattering, but we need to kind of be respectful of the fact that they spent so much time really making it ready for us. And I'd love to see if we could move this to a vote in June, if possible. If we don't make it in June, the next time that we could do it would be September. So it seems like it would be kind of in the spirit of getting things done for us to try to figure out a way to have this happen in June. So the next couple of steps would be to have 2 public meetings, the second one being more than 20 days from the time that we take the vote. And so the days that we have proposed in this are, for public meetings, are April 23rd and May 14th. And so May 14th is 22 days from June 5th, so we're safe on that. And then the April 23rd through May 14th stretch would allow for up to 2 more meetings, special meetings, if we felt we had to hold them. Great. So I think in theory, we hold that first meeting as we discussed at our last meeting. We hold the first meeting. If any really big things come up, we can at that point remove anything from the proposal that we want to, and we could move forward that way. So I guess the first thing would be a motion. Let's get a motion on the table about this warning, and then maybe we could discuss it.
So
the warning. Chad, anyone
Second.
second it? Thank you, Carson. So we have a motion to warn this vote. Stuart, perhaps you were prepared to give that summary, but is there anything I missed in the summary that you'd like to touch on?
No. The one that was placed in your packet for this particular meeting contains all of the changes recommended by the Charter Review Committee, including the change in the taxation for the Downtown Improvement District and the opportunity, we would say, to vote on a 1% local option tax. And there are 4 opportunities there: meals, rooms, alcohol, and sales. And all of those would be available to the board. That would obviously take a decision by the board to ask the voters for approval on any one of those items. It doesn't mean that if this is included in the charter and it is adopted, that a vote will take place. It requires a second step by the board to put that issue before the voters. So every issue, those that really dealt with the manager-select board relationship and their relationship with the community are in here, and then the 2 relatively new issues, which is the change in the downtown improvement grand list, which now would include non-owner occupied residential properties, and the local option tax opportunity are included in this warning. This is the full vote.
Okay. So just for the boards, just as a reminder, in order to not put the whole charter review in front of voters, we are allowed to put this summary, but we have to summarize everything in the same way. So I have a couple of very minor suggestions on that summary. Is it too late for that, Stuart, or?
No,
Okay.
this is the time.
So I do feel like in subchapter 3, the second bullet, it says provision for transition to a paid or combination paid and volunteer fire department. I wonder if we could add, if majority of fire department members authorize transition, so that people who may not have read the full charter change amendment realize that this is something that needs the fire department approval.
Are we able to vote on this with a minor change like that? Are we still able to sign? To move
Yes,
forward with these?
you're able to
Okay. I
make
just
the
want to make sure that a
amendment.
small change like that won't prevent us from...
You will generally know, when we do these kinds of things, the signature page is generally separate. So in this case, it is not. So if you make changes on the last page, we'd have to recirculate a signature page at some point in the future. But
Can I ask why we would want to box ourselves in that way?
Well, it's my thought was, and so maybe we don't make this change, but it's my thought that if you come to vote and you have not read the relatively nuanced charter change,
Right.
you could read this as a provision for transition to a paid or combination paid and volunteer fire department, which is not really what it is. It is a provision, but it's not without, yes, it is a provision, but it's not without the specific kind of approval of the fire department. So I could imagine that fire department members, if they just read this, this sounds a little bit like it's intending
Okay.
to make that
All right.
change.
Okay.
Am I over worrying about
Well,
this?
that's what's in that binder.
So it's in the binder.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's consistent with what,
It's consistent with that.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's
Okay.
important to note that the entire charter, as amended, will be in each booth. So if you have a question about a specific
Right,
rule,
you
you'll
can
be
read it
able to
then.
go to that
What do you
page.
think the likelihood of that's going to be?
That's great.
I'm telling you.
No, I'm really happy about that.
that's what the law requires.
I know, but I'm just imagining.
I'm not
going to go to
imagining.
the fourth chapter right now.
Carson, I stopped imagining a
You'd be
long time
rifling
ago.
through. So the two other things, Stuart, I wondered about, there are the last bullets for 2 and 3 say technical amendments to clarify the authority of the select board to act as a board. And those are just areas where it says select board members and members is crossed out. But
That's
that's
right.
also true in 4 and 5. So I wonder if we need to put them in 2 and 3, do we also need to put them in 4 and 5?
My answer would be, I don't believe so, because if you amend subchapter 3, then that follows into 4 and 5. So with the amendment in 3, making it the select board and not select board members or members of the board, you essentially change everything that follows.
Okay.
So I don't think you need to do
Okay,
that.
and both of those references to select board members are not leading sentences, they're kind of embedded in the,
Yes.
okay, all right, so skip that. And then the last one is just on the options tax. I'm sorry, this is on the last page, but it does say.
Stop it, Donald.
It does say addition of authorization for the town upon favorable vote at an annual meeting or special town meeting to impose a 1% local options tax on meals, rooms, alcohol, and sales. And I think it's any or all of those.
Yes.
Yes, it is any or all.
And, yes, I would also like that to be added. I was just wondering if we say and or if it just, or whatever the framing needs to be.
So none would be exempted, is that what you're saying?
You could do one.
You could do one of
Two
those.
one,
or
two.
Well,
three.
so I think technically it should say 1% local options tax on any or all of meals, rooms, alcohol, and sales.
I agree.
Yeah,
Okay,
that'd be
'cause
great.
I want to clarify my point on this that I brought up several meetings ago after having went up and down businesses of Main Street who had objected to a 1% option tax because people like the bookstore, David Schaff, and other places have to compete. And as we all know, our little downtown is struggling like many small downtowns. And I'd like to get some assurance that with this language, we could adopt an exemption for the downtown business district. And does that need to be codified here?
I think the answer is no,
Okay.
and therefore,
This leaves us enough room.
I know, I don't think you can do that. I don't think a select board can carve out a group of businesses from a local option tax that the voters have approved.
Okay, well, explain to me how that collides with any and all.
Well, and
So
what
that
this,
some could be
what the question
exempted.
is, what the question in the
Any or all.
charter is does the select board want the voters to consider a 1% option tax on meals, rooms, alcohol, and/or sales? You can do any combination thereof. I think Manchester does meals and rooms and sales, but I'm not certain of that. There are some towns that do only meals and rooms. There are some towns that do only the sales tax. So that question would come after this is adopted. It would be up to the board to decide what to ask the voters. What do the voters want to approve? And the voters can at that point, they have the say on whether they approve what you've put before them. And it can be any combination of these four taxable opportunities.
This just gives us a tool that we're able to use.
Okay.
Right,
So
so-
this is a broad tool
Yes.
that would not
It requires.
forbid us to come back and to amend it to
You could
exempt.
have this in the charter and never ask the voters a thing.
But it would still leave room for us to exempt it.
No, I don't think you can, once you say a local option sales tax is going to be charged, you can't exempt a group of businesses from that.
Why?
Because the sales tax would be essentially levied by the state. Just as in Manchester, when you buy something in Manchester, the 1% sales tax is added, Manchester merchants collect it. That money goes to the state as part of the sales tax and then comes back, 70% comes back to the town of Manchester for its use. So you can't say that this merchant has to charge it and this merchant doesn't.
So there's a lot of education we could have on this, but the way I remember this is just giving the town the authority to do this options tax, not the requirement that we do the options tax.
It's just the authority.
If we wanted to do it any other way, we'd have to do it with a legislative fix.
And the legislative fix is simply not going to happen.
So we can't do it by legislature. So by putting it in the charter, it gives us the option to then have a discussion about it and decide whether or not to go forward with it. So we might choose to do nothing with it. But if we have this in our charter, we can at least make the decision instead of having it go to the legislature.
Or the voters ultimately make the decision.
Yes.
I guess I mean we by the community, not the
Right.
select board. Yes, the
Right, okay.
voters. Thank you for that. Right. So,
So just because this is in the charter does not mean it's going to happen.
nor does it mean we necessarily support it. It simply means that we
We
would like
have-
to be,
it's
the
a
town would like to
possibility.
vote on it and make the choice as opposed to having it be something that the legislature gets to thumbs up or thumbs down. Does that sound right to everybody?
And who would I appeal to ask that more definitively? Not that I doubt what you're saying, but I really would like a broader.
Well, you could ask either one of our senators. You could ask the state tax department.
Okay.
We could even ask our town to research it if we get to the point that we really want to consider it.
What a good idea.
So, but we're not at that point. All we're thinking right now is, should the select board and the voters be able to make the decision, or should the legislature be able to make the decision?
Did your orders make it so we can't sign this thing?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well,
Did
if you vote to accept it in this format, I can make the amendments and we can then circulate a charter amendment warning.
We can't
to-
sign it tonight, though.
Well, you could sign it, but you'd have to sign it again because we're going to be making a change on that last page. So it would be easier once it's amended to have you folks stop into the office and sign it. Once you voted to accept it, you can sign it at your convenience.
Okay.
But we'd need it to be signed.
I apologize.
relatively
I didn't
quickly.
realize that that was the sequence of the process.
Yeah.
Yep, sorry about that.
No, it's all right.
But you're not the only one that
So
wanted to
far,
change,
so far,
it's okay.
we're in good stead, and we have,
Correct.
if we can make the amendment and get you folks in to sign it, we know we have an approved warning. It's just a matter of having your signatures on it.
Okay,
Can I just make one comment?
okay. Other comments?
The meeting dates are on evenings where we have a regularly scheduled select board meeting, which is great. I guess at this point, I can't gauge how much participation there's going to be. So I guess when whoever develops the agenda, if we feel like we're going to have a very lengthy discussion, we should just go light on the rest of the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think.
These will be public hearings scheduled for 6 PM, so
Yeah.
they will be the first order of business
Okay.
after the pledge. And then the consent agenda and everything else will follow.
Right.
We may have a sense of how much participation we're expecting, but, we
Well,
won't.
and the reason we scheduled it this way really was because we had such light participation during our review during the course of January,
It
February,
may
and
be a
March.
complete non-issue.
So it may be a non-issue, but if people come, great, and if we really get kicking the dust up, we still have April 30th and May 7th to
Right.
schedule special meetings if we need them.
Right.
So I think we're doing, this is expeditious, it gets us to a vote in June, but it also leaves room if we
Have to have another one.
have to have more meetings.
perfect,
So,
perfect.
so, any other discussion? No? All right, well, I guess I'd take a vote on this. All in favor of warning the special meeting as? Aye? Okay. All right, great. Opposed? No? So that is unanimous also, and I'm sorry I didn't get you those changes Friday, Stuart, so that we could have signed the real thing tonight, but
I was only in the office for a short time Friday. It probably wouldn't have made a difference.
Thank you.
Dan and I passed in the night.
Thank you
I came
for-
back, he left.
making me feel less bad about that.
No problem.
Okay, so the fifth thing on our agenda tonight is a proposal for a feasibility study, and so Bima, we're pleased to have you here tonight. Would you be willing to come up and introduce yourself and tell us about your business and your proposal, and what you would like from us tonight?
Sure. Thank you, Vice Chair and members of the Select Board. My name is Bhima Netta. I'm the owner of Power Guru Solar Electric Systems. We are a local solar business based out of North Bennington. We've been in business over 10 years now, and during this time we have installed about 150 solar projects, about 1.5 megawatts or so of solar. And so would you like me to summarize the proposal you have in your hands?
I would like you to summarize it, and it's partly for the general public as well.
Okay,
So-
super. So we're requesting a permission to conduct a feasibility study to do a 120 kilowatt community solar project on the roof of the Bennington wastewater treatment facility. So the community solar would be meant for local nonprofits serving the low and moderate income community. We had discussions with them with Bennington Coalition for the Homeless, Bennington Project Independence, Greater Bennington Interfaith Community Services, and Shires Housing in a lease arrangement which would save them 10% on their utility bills. So we're also in talks with the Bank of Bennington to provide project financing and be the third-party owner of the system so that they may enjoy the tax credits which the nonprofits cannot. The town would realize annual lease payments of about $1,000 a year for the lease of the roof, or the town can also be a beneficiary of the solar project. So they would get an equivalent amount of free electricity from the solar. In return, we're requesting a property tax waiver on the project. The Bennington Town Plan explicitly recognizes the type of project we are talking about. In the words of the plan, the town particularly encourages solar developments of any scale on building rooftops. The town strongly supports the development of small-scale, 150 kilowatt or less, solar projects for homes, schools, and other institutions, and particularly community solar projects. So to summarize, this is a community solar project that is in keeping with the town's plan, will realize revenue for the town, will benefit local low-income nonprofits with financing that is locally sourced, and it would be built by a Bennington-based company. So this is a project that combines environmental and social justice themes, and is a win-win-win-win for the Bennington community.
We like 5 wins.
Yeah, 4 not good enough, right?
So, and tonight you are requesting that the Select Board approve you carrying out a feasibility study of this project? Is that all you're asking tonight?
Yes, that's correct.
So you're not asking for specific consent to the project. You're just asking for permission to carry out a feasibility study?
That is correct. It would take about 3 months or so to conduct the study. There are a number of things that could trip us up, and we want to be able to be sure that we have a strategy for moving forward, or if anything stops, then we stop fail early, quit the project before we get too far.
Okay. Before we go to questions from the board, Stuart, have you had a chance to review this proposal?
Yes, I have.
And do you have any reactions from the town in terms of whether or not this is?
The feasibility study, I think, is a very good first step. A concern of the staff has long been, and we've been talking with Mr. Nitta for quite some time about this particular project. The wastewater treatment facility roofs are standing seam metal roofs. They're now in excess of 30 years old, and we have a concern about the stability of the roofs and how these fixtures are placed on the roofs, and then what happens if something fails and we've got to move their facilities. And so there are a host of issues having to do with the structural capability of the roofs themselves and how we move around the various operations. I think that one of the second things that concerns me is the $1,000 a year lease payment. Seems to me to be relatively low, but I understand this is not going to generate a ton of income for the folks who will benefit. I learned late this afternoon, as I think Mr. Nitta did, that the tax that he's seeking the waiver on is about $937 a year, based on the computations of our assessor. So there isn't really a win in there for Bennington. It's a break even for Bennington. We do,
Financial win, yeah.
Yeah, there's no financial win for us. We do a nice thing, perhaps for the community organizations that benefit from this, but I think you have to recognize that's what the game plan is. There's really nothing here for us other than we provide the roof, and either we get the $1,000 a year in a lease payment, or we charge the tax, or maybe we do both. Maybe he doesn't get to waive the tax, but I leave that to you. Let's do the structural study first and understand if there are some problems with that.
Okay.
That's correct. I think the structural and the roofing studies are part of what could trip us up. And so they are part of the filters we have to go through.
So to be clear, we're not going to approve this or accept this or in any way give it our approval or sort of tacit approval tonight, except maybe to talk about a feasibility study. So, okay. Questions from the board or comments?
Well, I'm really happy you're doing this. I do think it's worth doing. And so the feasibility study will in part be to see what shape the roof
Exactly.
is in?
So there are a few things that could trip us up. The structural, we would need to examine the building structure and the structure of the roof as well. So we'll have a structural engineer doing that. There will be a roofing engineer looking at the roof as well to look at wear, damage, projected life, replacement, all of that. And depending on what they find, we will have to decide whether we need to move forward in some shape or we need to abandon the project. So part of it could be they could find that the roof is perfectly fine and would last the 25 years of the project, in which case there's no problem. Or they could say the roof would have to be replaced in 10 or 15 years, in which case we would have to budget the removal of all our equipment and replacement on the roof once the roof has been replaced. Okay. Or they could say that there's some damage to the roof and it needs to be repaired, in which case we would have to work with the town and figure out whether we want to be part of the folks paying for the repairs or what our strategy should be at that time.
Other comments from the board? Carson? No, really?
That's great.
All right, well, so I was expecting Carson.
Feasibility study. Let's just see what's on the other end.
Yeah.
It's great he's doing it.
Yeah,
Thanks,
so the only thing I would say, Bima, is you're paying for the feasibility study, right?
Correct.
Do you have a sense of how much you'll be paying for that?
This is money at risk. It's okay.
So I think I just want to flag for this board that over the past year or two, we have really encouraged our town staff to be ever more diligent about doing RFPs. So whenever the town does something on town property or that would benefit or in some way affect the town, we've been asking for increased attention to RFPs. And I think requests for proposal. So I think if we are not happy, if we're not a little bit happy with the idea of this going forward, we should let him know now before he spends some thousands of dollars doing a feasibility study. Does that make sense? In other words, if we're going to require an RFP, let's say that now. If we feel like this is community solar and it has a different set of goals than what we would normally be looking at, then let's go ahead and authorize the feasibility study. That would be my opinion anyway, in terms of not wasting his time and effort. Other thoughts on that?
I totally agree. I do want to ask, going back, because we've had these conversations over the years, did you choose the nonprofits based on their ability to then maybe have their clients buy into solar use, or are you thinking the nonprofits themselves would be the off-takers?
I think for Shires Housing, it would be the latter. But for the others, I would think that Bennington Project Independence has an 80 kilowatt requirement or so.
Right.
And similarly, Bennington Coalition for the Homeless has about 40 to 50 kilowatts.
Okay.
Between the two of them, they could easily take up the entire amount of the community solar on the roof.
Okay. I mean, this feels like a different kind of project, and it is something I would hope that we would support because it is social good. Yeah.
So say a little bit more about that, if you would, because what we're being asked to consider, and we're not considering it tonight, but what this proposal suggests is that we forsake financial gain to the town with the idea that we would be doing some social gain for the community.
Right.
So if you've worked hard on this over the past 5 years or something like that, or, I mean, what have
I've been
you?
involved in it for a while, but
Yeah.
no, but I mean, and there may be math still to be done. I'm sure there is math still to be done, but I like the idea that you are, that you have worked with the Bank of Bennington.
Thank
I
you.
like the idea that the off-takers will be agencies that work for social good in this community, and we support, I believe, it sounds like all the organizations that you're talking about, not all of them, but many of them are organizations that actually are on the ballot here. So it feels like there's a gain to the individuals that the organizations support, even if it's not directly electricity. It is that these organizations will be more stable because their electric costs will go down.
Right.
So
in the interest of transparency, I had to point out that I had lots of talks with these organizations. They are very much in favor of community solar, but I have no concrete commitments from them.
okay.
Similarly, with the Bank of Bennington, we had many talks over the past few months. We don't have a commitment for them to move forward with financing the project, and they had expressed a concern that the tax appetite that they would accrue out of this might be more than they are able to undertake.
And
But
so-
these are all, stumbling blocks we have to get past, and that's what the feasibility study is for.
Yeah. And so is part of the feasibility study going out to the community also? I mean, I'm thinking about groups, I'm just making this up, like PAVE, which may also have an interest in reducing their overhead.
Yes.
It would allow them to serve their clients
Right. Yeah.
better, probably, so that there might be an expanded list of organizations that
That's right, yes.
would be interested.
So, Joan, I'll get to you, but just maybe one, if I could just press you one more time, Bima, on RFPs. Are there other people in our community that are doing community solar at this point? If we decide that we want to do community solar, are there other companies that we should be considering, or are you the only person doing it at this point?
There aren't many, in all honesty. I don't think people would want to take up a project of this size. It falls between a couple of extremes. One is local solar installers like us compared to the bigger folks who would much rather do 500 kilowatt projects.
I'm part of a community solar project with Solar Pro, which is in Arlington, so they are certainly local. I have no idea whether they have any interest in something like this. But, it feels to me like the difference here is that these guys have gone to the Bank of Bennington. They've talked about how can we build something that's socially responsible and use a rooftop, which makes my heart sing, and do some good here. So it feels like it's more of a package. It feels to me like it's a different kind of package than someone saying, I'd like to put solar panels on the landfill. And in that case, I would like to see
An RFP.
an RFP.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is Bima's company's risk, though. I mean, he's just asking just to see if the roof is fine,
Good point.
he's just checking it out. Like, let's let him run as far as he wants to run, put as much money at risk as you want to. This is just kind of,
I guess we
even at
could
the
do
starting line yet. Let's just let him have
We could
at
do
it.
him the courtesy, though, if we feel like we're going to nix this in favor of just putting our own solar panels on that roof. We could nix this now and save him a lot of money.
We're not going to be putting our own solar
No.
panels.
Okay, so we're
And
not
we
gonna
don't
put our
need
own
any
solar
more,
panels.
right?
We already have committed all of our meters
Right.
for solar. And so we are, all of our electricity technically is being generated either from hydroelectric or from solar power at
Okay,
the
so
present.
we're committed.
We're committed. We can't take this power because we just don't have the meter capacity for it. So we're locked, and it really doesn't make sense for us to invest financially in solar panels on our roofs because there's no benefit to us.
It ought to be a headline that says the town of Bennington doesn't need any more green energy because we're full. Yeah, it's fantastic.
So Jonah, you have your hand up. I don't know if you want to come up and speak into the mic, if you would, please, just so that people at home can hear you. And then after Jonah, any other audience people that would like to comment, or you're welcome to.
My name's Jonas Spivak. My wife and I own the Hawkins House Crafts Market here in Bennington. But like many Vermonters, I wear a lot of hats, and I'm wearing two hats today that I want to share with you. One is that I also serve as a volunteer in the role of president of the board of directors for our local area Chamber of Commerce. And I'm here to testify that Bima Nita and Power Guru is a company in good standing with the Chamber of Commerce. He's active and involved in our business community. And he's even gone the extra mile, attended with us our Day Under the Dome to help advocate at the state level with our legislature on business matters that are of concern for our region. I think that's really important to mention that. And I'm going to add to that and say on a personal level, he put solar panels on my house. And I was extremely pleased with the job that they did. They were very professional and courteous all the way through the process. And a couple of months after the job was totally completed and I was happily enjoying the savings from my solar panels, I received a check from Power Guru because in going back over their records, they realized that they had overestimated the cost of some of the components of our system. And he sent me a check for that, totally unasked for and a total surprise. And I think that speaks to the ethics of this company. And one of the reasons I want to highlight that, especially to the community as a whole, because we often read in the paper about other solar companies coming from typically outside our area that are trying to do larger projects that aren't in keeping with our town plan and have even been litigious in those efforts. And I want to say that that is not Power Guru. So I wanted to make sure that that distinction was clear. I also wanted to comment on the fact about the benefit to our community. I think Stu correctly noted that the tax benefit pretty much would outweigh the payback that Power Guru is suggesting, at least at this very early stage. But what that doesn't include is the importance of having a business that is directly tied into the green economy type of jobs that is the jobs of the future and is absolutely vital for our community as a whole. He's a long-standing business with over 10 years of history in our community and employs a number of people with good-paying jobs to do that kind of work. Thank you very much, and thank you, Beaton.
I've got to weigh in.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonah.
If I may.
Go ahead, Jim.
I've got to weigh in. The first lines of Mr. Sandman, Send Me a Dream, where have you been? This is everything that I've hoped for the town, and the way that you presented it, and how the town and many other avenues can benefit from it. And all the buildings that this town owns in similar ways. As Stu pointed out, we, the town, when I've inquired about this over the years, cannot do it ourselves, but you, as a local businessman, could do that and have the town and yourself benefit. So I would like to invite you to sit down and talk with Stu, if I may be so bold, Stu, and talk about exploring those options for
Thank you.
the buildings that we own in Bennington. Lots of flat roofs, and how you and the town could benefit.
Thank you. We'll certainly do so.
So, other questions from, or comments from the audience? Come on up, please. Introduce yourself and...
My name's Jerry Bird. I'm a local resident of Bennington. I have to buttress Jonah's remarks by the fact that BEMA also installed my solar power. And what was monumental to me about the way that he did that with me was that, unlike other solar people that I inquired with, he sat down and he asked me what my goals were. And my goals were a net zero energy house. And then he asked me how I was going to achieve that. And then I gave him my ideas and talked to him about that. And then he suggested other ways that I might do that. And so we ended up installing a unit that was a third the size that had been recommended to me, and doing the job just fine. So I just wanted to say that his technical expertise is stellar, and the fact that we can do things and can think things through, and he's willing to listen. That was the big deal to me, that he could listen to me, find out what my goals were, and then ascertain how to do that. I think they can do the same for the town of Bennington. And BEMA and I have been working on community solar for 3 years now, and so he's responsible for doing the Southshire Community Solar Phases 1 and 2, and we're working on Bennington's Community Solar right now to, although I am not the religious sort, Donald, on top of the roofs of the St. Peter's, UUFB, and also hopefully the Baptist Church. So we'll be hopefully rolling some of those things into the whole project.
Great.
So, just to let you know.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, so, and to be clear, tonight we're really only, as a board, deciding whether or not we want to give approval to carry out a feasibility study, as Carson pointed out. I think maybe this conversation has given us a sense that we have a potentially good fellow that we're working with here. We're unlikely to want to do an RFP because of the nature of the community solar element of this, and the town is already maxed out on what we could accept for power. So, but we are not making any, if we would go through with this, BEMA, we would want to take a whole new look at this when you come back with a feasibility study.
Yes, so I'll be reporting about every month or so on the results of the study to the town, and we'll be keeping you folks absolutely in the loop.
Okay. So with that in mind, I would accept a motion from the board to approval to carry out a feasibility study of this project. Okay. You've got a second there? No. Who's the second?
First, second.
So Carol and Thurber. And all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, so unanimous. Thank you very much. We look forward to hearing what you come up with.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bima.
Thank you, folks in the audience
you.
who gave us your words, too. We have a request from the Sophomore Summit, the Sophomore Career Summit. Is there somebody that would like to do that, or should we, in the audience? No. Jean,
No,
would you?
I think I'm doing it.
Are you doing
Yeah,
that? Okay.
I think so.
Great.
Yes.
All right. If you'd please tell us what you're thinking here, that'd be great.
So we all received a letter from Kristen Kimball, who's the Mount Anthony Union High School School to Work Director, and she is asking that we continue our support for the Sophomore Summit. It is in its 14th year, and it is an event that happens every April, and it brings every sophomore in the county to Bennington College to spend a day learning about careers of students choosing. And Jean has been part of this, Tom has been part of this, Donald is getting to do it for the first time this year.
Kids.
And I get to chair a panel, and it's a really wonderful opportunity for kids to do some exploring and talk to professionals, find out that finding your ultimate career is not usually a straightforward operation, and just, getting a sense of what kind of skills you need for the kinds of positions that kids are interested in. So this year, there are 270 kids in 10th grade coming from Mount Anthony, Burton, Long Trail, and Arlington Memorial High School. And it is an expensive endeavor. It costs between $4,000 and $5,000 each year. In the beginning, there were VSAC grants that paid for the summit, and when those went away, Mount Anthony picked up the cost. And they charge a nominal fee to other schools to come. They basically charge them some part of the lunch cost, but the rest of the costs, which include renting the space, busing, materials for the panelists. There are about 50 panelists that come, snacks, signage, just everything that goes into presenting a day have to be paid by Mount Anthony. So they have a modest request that we support them for $500, and I would certainly urge us to do that.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
I'd like to comment, just every year beforehand, for my 9 years at Mount Anthony, I've always heard the students go, why are they making us do this? And then right after, the feedback is always tremendous, like, I'm really glad we went, or I didn't realize this, and it's just a really good program, and I really hope you support it.
Well, certainly as a community, we have put a premium on, in terms of economic development, workforce readiness and getting our students ready for the workforce and in the strongest place they can be when we launch them. So I would be supportive of this too. My only comment would be, I think it's difficult for the select board when sort of requests for cash come in during the course of the year. In my ideal world, this would come in as a request for a budget year. So I'm not saying we shouldn't approve this, but for next year, if it looks like it happens every year, for next year, if the thought is that this would be happening again, it seems like it would be nice to get that email or get that letter to the town earlier so that we could build it into the budget. I'm not sure how we'd pay for this right now, so can you?
I've looked at Xerot's budget because this is a community development issue, and we do have some funds in what's called partnership activities. This seems to fit within that, so I think we can fund it.
Okay.
Zerwatts just said no, she shook her head.
Well, I
So it
know.
wants to come out of your budget.
Well, she
Take it out of the town manager's budget. Yeah.
There is
Well, so we
some benefit to sitting in this chair.
I just think that, we should take note of the fact that there are business partnerships, and we should make a special note during budget season, not putting it at the bottom of the list, but really saying that just like sophomore summit, there are other events we should really prioritize.
Yes.
That's right.
And
That's right.
did we not pull it out of, there was an economic development fund that we've taken it out of in the past?
No, we wouldn't have hit that.
Did that morph?
That's really a development fund.
Okay.
This really is an activity that I think rightfully belongs in our partnership activities line item, and I share, Jean, and Donald, your idea, as well as Xeros, that we really ought to be thinking about this in October and November when we build the budget, so the money is there and we're not
Trying to find it
stretching,
somewhere.
trying to figure it out.
So great event and great effort, and I would say we should support this, but let's ask whoever's in charge of it, Kristen Kimball, to see if we could get that built into Zerwat's budget for next year. So especially if it's been funded year after year after year, it seems awkward to be coming in as a request by letter. So unless there's any more discussion to be had on it, I would ask for a motion on this.
Motion.
Okay, a motion to approve this expenditure in a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Okay, unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing us a great program. We also have tonight liquor license renewals.
We do have renewals, and we have one new liquor license application attached. This is for the Pizza House. Main Street is being purchased by the Hassets, and so we need to have a new liquor license. So please look for the signature pages there to make sure that you do put your name on those. And of course, all the rest are renewals, and there are 17 of them or something like that.
Okay. Thank you, Stuart. Is there any manager's report tonight?
I have no manager's report this evening.
Oh, in the theme of getting out of here early, huh?
Yes, sir.
The sun's still out. Where's FEMA?
All right. Well, if there's no manager's report, I would dare any members to offer us other business.
I just have one thing, and it's a happy thing. Well, sort of a happy thing. So one of our cars, both of our cars are 13 years old, and one of them has bit the dust. So I started looking into getting back and forth to work by the little Green Mountain bus. And by gosh, it's going to work. I can actually get from Williamstown, door to door, basically, back and forth to work on our little Green Mountain bus. So I am very happy and very grateful for the Green Mountain bus.
That's great.
As a board member of the Green Mountain Community Network, I thank you.
Great. Support the bus. Take the bus.
Take the bus.
Person?
We breezed over that quickly about the recent acquisition of Bennington Pizza House there. That's a great, I don't want to speak about their dealings, but that's good to hear. I don't want to draw too much attention to it, but that's one small business owner reinvesting again in the community, downtown. So,
Yes.
The inside page, too, Stu.
It gets the Jim.
The inside page.
Yeah. Only one person has signed the liquor license application, and Donald and Jean, you have not signed.
Didn't get here yet.
Well,
It turned around to Jim.
Jim does this all the time. It gets to Jim, and he sends it back this way.
Because on the side,
All right, come on, people.
smart enough.
We can sign after we adjourn if we have to.
That's true.
I have one thing if I could.
Jim, anything from you?
Okay, sign
I thought he was kidding.
Don't get the flu.
Don't get
Not
the
at all week stuff.
Yes, I do. So Sophomore Summit is part of April Career Month, and so I want to invite everyone to pay attention to the banner, and also you can go to the CCV website, you can go to BCRC or BCIC website and see the whole month's activities. But there are lots and lots of things for everyone from pre-kindergarten to adulthood, including on Saturday, April 21st, there will be an open house and tour of the Benmont Mill. So the place will be open, you can roam around inside, and then you can also visit 5 to 7 businesses if you want in that morning. So please enjoy Career Month, and thank you.
That's great.
I got the chance to visit the Burlington area this weekend for some personal things, and saw 3 different TIF districts, that were in use: Winooski, Burlington Downtown, and the Waterfront District. And not being in those areas in a long time and seeing now how they've grown out of and what's come of the TIF districts is really inspiring for Bennington. So pictures don't do it justice. If you get a chance to visit Winooski or those areas, I'm really excited what could be happening here in Bennington, just from visiting up there.
That's
Seeing
great.
it in person, it was
That's
great.
great. Excellent, thank you. Well, I'd like to thank the audience members for coming tonight, and people at home for listening, and Select Board, thank you for making it a short meeting. I might have time to empty those sap buckets after all. So a motion to adjourn would be accepted?
So moved.
So moved. But second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
We are out of session. Thank
Except
you.
we need to
Good night.
sign.